Welcome to the message for Christmas Day, Sunday, December 25th, 2022. I'm so glad that Christmas falls on Sunday this year so that we get to worship together. I'm wearing my Christmas sweater as in celebration of this day as well. A reading from Romans. Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. This is chapter 14. Welcome those who are weak in faith, but not for the purpose of quarreling over opinions. Some believe in eating anything, while the weak eat only vegetables. Those who eat must not despise those who abstain, and those who abstain must not pass judgment on those who eat, for God has welcomed them. Who are you to pass judgment on slaves of one another? It is before their own Lord that they stand or fall, and they are to be upheld, for the Lord is able to make them stand. Some judge one day better than another, and others judge all days to be alike. Let all be fully convinced in their own minds. Those who observe the day observe it for the Lord, and those who eat, eat for the Lord, since they give thanks to God. For those who abstain, abstain for the Lord, and give thanks to God. For those who do not live to themselves, and we do not die to ourselves. If we live to the Lord. If we die to the Lord. So then, whether we live or whether we die, we are the Lord's. For this end, Christ died and lived again, so that he might be Lord both of the dead and the living. Our next reading is from John chapter 1. Hear what the Spirit's saying to the church. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, the one who enlightens everyone, has come into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood or of the will of the flesh or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, and the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. These are the words of the Lord. Thanks be to God. First things first, I must confess to a robbery. I shamelessly stole my sermon title, Jesus for Everyone, from the series of Bible study books written by N.T. Wright, who wrote Mark for Everyone, Luke for Everyone, and so on and so forth. And when I came to Edmonds Presbyterian a year and a half ago, I wanted to choose a Bible study resource for when we came back from COVID. And I saw a bunch of these For Everyone books on the bookshelf in the pastor's office when I arrived. So I didn't know the congregation very well. And I wanted to choose something that was pretty safe, that was pretty down the middle of the road theologically. So I chose Romans for Everyone because I think everyone should know the book of Romans well. And Wright, N.T. Wright, who's also known as Tom Wright, is a leading Roman scholar. He's written many commentaries, lots of books on Romans. So he's a good source for this. But even though he's a scholar, his books are meant for lay people so that everybody can understand them. And most of the time he does succeed. They're really good. But I have to confess that he sometimes leaves people more confused than when he started. This is especially true in Romans 14, which I just read. And as you heard, Romans 14 is a soaring statement of freedom and of unity and acceptance of differences. But I'm afraid poor Tom Wright just made it as dry as a bone. And we had to kind of go off script when we studied Romans 14. So, my intention with you is that this sermon will be in that spirit, the spirit of Tom Wright on the good side, but without the scholarly confusion that he sometimes brings. Fortunately, I'm not an expert like he is, so it's a lot easier for me to do this than it would be for him. This is Christmas, so I think it's a worthy goal to talk about Jesus for everyone. In the spirit of ecumenism, that is, not everybody's a Christian, and there are people of different religions and denominations and everything. And even some people who have been Christians have left the faith, a lot of times for good reasons. And for this reason, I will avoid saying everyone needs Jesus, because that's up to you. And instead, I think everyone can claim Jesus for their own, in their own way. And I think that Christmas gives us that opportunity because Christians and non-Christians alike claim Christmas as a hope for spiritual communion. I'm hoping to make a case for that, and that for common ground where we can all respect and love who Jesus is once again. Now, I spoke to a man recently who said that non-believers can't possibly love Jesus or even understand the Bible. He used 1 Corinthians 2 as his reasoning for this because he reasoned, they just don't have the Holy Spirit. How can they understand anything? Well, this is just false. There's lots of ways to take this, but what he really meant was that there's an exclusive club, and that club is called Christianity, at least the right kind of Christianity, I think, in his mind. And if you're in the club, you have this divine knowledge through the Holy Spirit, and everyone else that's outside is in darkness and not worth listening to. For him, there was this strict line between being saved and unsaved, between believers and non-believers. I pushed back on him and I said, this is just harmful exclusion. It's not the meaning in the text at all. And this kind of dualism is simply just not accurate, helpful, and it's just fundamentalism that you're saying. You're not talking about Christianity. There are people all over of faith, all over the world, who may not fit our strict definition of a believer, but have the truth of the Holy Spirit. When I said this, I received a very angry reaction. He said, "You're not even a true believer. You pretend you are. And as a minister, you're misleading people and you're condemning them to hell." I do hear this from time to time, and I don't get angry about it anymore when I hear things like this. Instead, I have pity, and I ponder all of the pain and self-loathing that causes people to come to this conclusion. How did we come to such a hard view? Billions of people around the world celebrate Christmas. They honor what Jesus said and what he stood for. They hope for peace and justice. Are we saying that they don't matter? This conversation left me feeling very sad, as it sometimes does, because unfortunately, these views of exclusion are very common. And in the spirit of an ecumenical cooperation between people of different faiths, and different religions is under attack. When I was in seminary, I had a world religions class in my first year, and it was fascinating. Now, some of the students from very strong evangelistic backgrounds, kind of like this man I was talking to, found the class very hard. And you can imagine the debates around Christians responding to other religions. One of the best parts of the class is that we had to visit other worship services. I visited a Sikh Gurudwara. Now, Sikh is, sometimes people use the word Sikh, but most people, these are the people with the turbans that are in Western India and Pakistan. And the Sikhs or Sikh have worship places called Gurudwaras. And we went to one of those. We also went to a Hindu temple, and we went to a synagogue. And I went with several of my classmates. Now, the Sikh service was incredibly beautiful, filled with singing and music and ritual. Several of us said that we felt the presence of the Holy Spirit when we interacted with them and when we shared a meal with them and we were with them. The Jewish service also had a very familiar feeling with responsive readings and an amazing cantor who sang with his guitar. And most people just were really touched by this service as well. But it was the Hindu temple that caused the most challenge for people. Most Christians, I should say, think that Hindus are polytheistic, worshiping many gods. But this is a misunderstanding. When we were in the temple, we looked at the various statues and various symbols, and we saw a statue of Mary and Jesus in the temple, in this Hindu temple. And we were surprised. And we asked the shaman who was with us, why were Jesus and Mary in the temple? And he said, we love Jesus. And we love Mary, the Mother of God. And like all of these statues you see, we see Jesus and Mary as a reflection of the truth. We see each of these as a window to the true unknowable God. He said that Vishnu and Ganesh and the other symbols that we think of as Hindu gods, along with Mary and Jesus, are faces of God. This is something that the students had never heard before, and it put a huge chink in their armor of Christian exclusivity. John 14:6 says, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And this is at the heart of Christian exclusivity for many Christians. And even worse, it was the fuel for colonialism and oppression in previous generations. But it's a sweeping, beautiful statement. And it makes me grieve when I hear this verse being used as a weapon. And what causes it to be a weapon for many people is the word accept that causes all these problems. It's not a verse of exclusion. Jesus was telling Philip, who he was speaking to in this verse, that the Father and he are one and the same. This becomes clearer in the subsequent verses. It's not a statement of exclusion at all, but inclusion. Jesus is not a gatekeeper. He is the way. The hados in Greek means the path, the road, the journey, the spiritual journey. He says, if you know me, then you know the Father. That's it. There are no tests. There are no statements of belief. There are no confessions. Just know him. I was thinking of in the thinking of the Hindu shaman, if you know him, then you know the face of the true invisible God. In Orthodoxy, They venerate icons. Icons are these beautiful painted boards with with the saints on them, and Jesus and Mary and all of them. And some Christians become very upset about this because they think that the icons are being worshipped. The same thing happens with Mary in the Roman Catholic tradition. Some people think that the veneration of Mary is idolatry, and this is simply not true. The icons are a window, a thin place. Mary is a representation. The true God is revealed in them and through them. So rather than division, Jesus is a unifying force. If you know Jesus, you know the Father. That's all he's saying. He's not preaching exclusion at all. Exclusion is only the message that people have placed in these verses for their own satisfaction. In John 1, which I think that we can read 1,000 times over and still can't take it all in, Jesus is the Word. Jesus is the physical, fleshy being of the one true God. If you know him, you know God. And that's why I love Christmas. Because for a few moments every year, people of all faiths, all over the world, billions and billions of people, think of Jesus a little differently. You can be in Muslim Indonesia and see Christmas decorations in many places because Muslims also venerate Jesus. It's right there. It's in the Quran. You can go to communist China, which a place I have been to several times, and you can see Christmas too. Now, it may not be exactly like the way we think of Christ, but it is an opening, and it's a gash in the armor of Chinese authoritarianism. Jesus truly is everywhere. We only have to open our eyes and see him. When I encounter a non-believer or somebody, more often somebody who has turned away from the faith, I don't want to change them. I don't want to change them into something I want them to be. And that is the great gift of our Reformed faith, our Reformed theology. The burden of salvation does not rest on us. Instead, I want to share who Jesus really is. I want to reintroduce Jesus. Instead of Jesus that they think that they know, I want them to stand back and see the Jesus of the Gospels. Because no matter who you think of Christians and the church, or what you think of Christians and the church and all of the bad things that are associated with it, this Jesus guy is worth knowing. He is worthy of respect. Whatever you think of his divinity, he is the universal exemplar of humility, peacefulness, love, healing, and self-sacrifice. All good people who aspire to serve their fellow humans with kindness and grace can find a model worthy of following in Jesus. So what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? I think it's much broader than most people are led to think. The Spirit of truth is present in all humanity. Some people listen and follow the Spirit, and others do everything they can to deny and push the Spirit away. I believe that the Spirit is the Spirit of God. Instead of something exclusively given to a few select people inside of a club, it's present in all. Some people have given up on calling themselves Christian because of all the pain, misinformation, and cruelty that's associated with that word. They will call themselves Jesus followers instead. And hey, I get it. I have sympathy for this. I understand what they're saying. But Christian means little Christ. And I won't give up on that word, not so easily. Instead, I think we should reclaim the word Christian and not just rebranded out of existence, because it is a window into knowing the one true God. So Jesus is for everyone. Yes, I think Jesus is. The Jesus of the gospel story, the Jesus who stands up to hate and cruelty, the Jesus who breaks the rules in favor of the poor and the dispossessed, the Jesus who had every opportunity to take advantage of his power and his status, who was tempted to seize it in every way, in every turn, but instead remained humble and faithful even unto death, death on the cross. This Jesus, the one whose spirit resides in all humanity, if we only watch and listen. In the play Hamlet, Shakespeare has Hamlet say, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than you are that are dreamt in your philosophy." No truer words have been spoken. The birth of Jesus is a window into this unknown. God of the universe, Emmanuel, God with us. We all know it. We all know it's there in our different ways. Let us get reacquainted with Jesus, the Savior of the world. Let us pray. Holy God, you are vast, and you are so much more than we can comprehend. But you are knowable because we can know Jesus. Yes, the mystery is always there, for we can spend a lifetime pondering on the Word of God and that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and still not completely understand. But we know you. Help us to recognize the myriad of ways that your children throughout all humanity know you. On this Christmas day, let us know when we have common purpose and communion with all people who love you in spirit and in truth. We pray these things in Emmanuel, the Son, the Incarnate, the Anointed One, Jesus the Christ, now and forever. Amen.